Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Today we will be looking at what may be the most interesting GMT looking GMT watch we have seen since the GMT phase began due to Seiko releasing their very affordable Cola GMT movement. Now I know lots of us have had enough of looking at GMT watches because of this, but this one managed to pique my interest. Now, I already gave you guys a little glimpse on an unboxing video some weeks ago. This is the Red Star Uni-crown GMT, and the only reason I found this so interesting was due to the design. It takes inspiration from the Seiko bullhead chronograph, but they've made this into a Uni-crown GMT watch, which I think is a great twist on such an old design. And to be completely honest, this is the only reason you'd buy this watch. It's going to be down to a very nostalgic urge. Now, I received a lot of feedback off the back of the unboxing, which mainly centered around the specifications of this watch against the price point. So let's start off with all that is bad or undesirable. So I paid £160 for this in the summer sale just gone, and at the time of recording this video it's gone up to £190 with some coupons, etc. Now, which is going to make it even more difficult to justify some of the lower specifications on offer. Some of the issues you may have against the price point, first off, is they use a mineral crystal. Now, the majority of the people in the comment section complained about this aspect. Now, while personally I do differ with you guys on this one, I completely understand the criticism. We get sapphire crystal as standard on watches as cheap as £40 to £50, and sapphire is the standard now on almost every watch. Now, personally, I don't mind the crystal used because in practice, mineral glass will be safe for a long time unless you use the watch as a heavy duty beater. Now, another possible reason is that due to the shape and profile of this crystal, the sapphire would have to be quite bespoke and therefore cost a little more, which for the price they are charging, I agree they still could have put that in, but the mineral glass is not a deal breaker for me. The second issue for me is that it's something I pointed out in the unboxing. It's the bracelet. It's very cheap. It's a 3-link bracelet, and I'm sure it's a grade lower than the 316L steel used for the watch case. As you can see, a clear color difference. It also uses split pins and also uses a dated clasp shell as well as non-milled internal. So you've got this stamped internal, which we've seen so many years ago. So for that, there actually is no excuse for a poorly specified bracelet. Now, the design of the bracelet, while it is somewhat true to the watch it is homaging, and some of the flexibility is also a result of that, it just feels quite off, and as I said, it does feel very dated in comparison to the watch case. So there is simply no getting away from that. However, they do offer a bespoke fabric or a leather strap, which I can't clearly tell which one it is in the pictures, but that's something I would rather go for. And also having an 18mm lug width means there's not a lot of strap options or designs available. But is all of the watch bad? So I don't think so. So going back to what I said, the biggest driver for anyone wanting this is going to be that nostalgic reason. It's quite a popular vintage design, slightly obscure but very distinguishable, and I do really like the bullhead chronographs, or in this case, the Uni-crown setup. In fact, one of my favorite watches is with this feature is the discontinued Seiko Landmaster Spring Drive GMT, where the Uni-crown on that watch just looks pure badass. So some of the nicer things about this watch, the first one being the dial. You do have quite a nice dial. The watch comes in 3 different colors. You've got the green dial, which I have in hand, with green accented bezel. You've got a full blue dial and also a Pepsi configuration. Now, I chose the green as it was something different and I really like a good green dial, and it hasn't disappointed. It has a very rich color. It's the same shade as I show you in the picture, and you've got a very subtle sunray pattern. And you've also got curved gridded lines which fit really well with the GMT theme. You also have an applied 24-hour out-a-minute track with a little moon and a sun at the corresponding hours. And you also got printed text above the well-placed 6 o'clock date window. Now, I like the use of red accents on the various parts of the watch face. It does bring the whole watch together quite nicely. And I also like the applied red star logo above the font. You also got applied hour markers and a framed date window, so they haven't skimped on the dial at all. You even have very decent lume for a non-diver. It's adequately layered and consistent with a good overall glow. I've also got no issues with the aluminium bezel insert. As I said, it's nicely accented. You've got half the bezel, which is a dark green, and then you've got that black top part of the GMT bezel. And I think the aluminium bezel insert gives the watch the retro feel which it needs. Now, the beveled polished hands give you fairly good legibility, and they do suit the watch face and the hour markers, and the proportions of the handset are also okay as well. Now moving on to the case, it is a huge contrast to the bracelet, which is what makes the bracelet come across even worse. The case is very nicely made. You've got really good weight and a really well defined cushion shape. The side profile is nicely finished with a satin brush side which extends onto the step where we find the Uni-crown sits. The rest of the case is highly polished and the lines between the brushing and the polishing are very crisp. Now the crown, the main feature of the watch, yes, it's a very quirky thing to use, being right at the top of a watch, but it's a nice shape with plenty of splines for design, but also good grip. It's also a push-pull crown and it also has a star logo at the top and it does work really well. So it's something which I find quite impressive. It's quite easy to use, you know, the case doesn't really get in the way and you can still use all the functionality really well and just simply press the crown back down when you're done. So I'm quite impressed with this Uni-crown feature. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I've wanted a Uni-crown watch for quite a while. Now turning the watch around, you've got an exhibition case back and they've gone to the trouble of signing the roll tie with the name, but they've called it a C star. They've also written something on the case back about this being the first diver and a C star next to red star, and you've got some confusing branding, or they've probably used it from a different model. Now the crucial part, how does it wear on wrist? The watch itself wears actually really nice. It's only a 42mm case with a 43mm lug to lug. It does come in a little thick at 14mm, but that's mostly due to the crystal, but I don't find that an issue on my 6.5-inch wrist. The main thing for me is the bracelet. The bracelet just doesn't feel right, which is why I haven't even bothered to size it, and I would prefer this either on a rubber, leather or a cloth strap. But being an 18mm lug width, it's difficult to get the variety of straps as you have in the 20mm lug widths. But the watch case itself, the actual watch head, due to the shape of the case, it sits dead center and it does look quite good on wrist and it's something that I would wear. So having said all this, overall, am I happy with this watch? I will say yes, I am. I think it's quite a unique homage, something quite particular and definitely the most interesting GMT I've seen. And the nostalgia of the design is the reason I got it. And it's going to have to be something similar for you guys because you wouldn't buy this if you're just looking for the best specifications for the money. Also on the price point, at £150, £160, I think is just about reasonable, maybe the maximum. Now, out of the sales, when it's at £190, I think they're asking a bit too much, especially when you look at a lot of other designs. But just on the design point, it goes back to what I said. You know, you're not going to find something like this from AliExpress, from any other brand, because these are the only guys that have done this. So that's it from me today. Let me know your thoughts on the watch below and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you everyone for watching.